Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. As always, wherever in the world you are listening to us from and whatever platform you're listening to us on, thank you guys so much for all of the support, all of those messages, all those emails, all the things that you've sent my way, the show's way. As I say every episode, I truly do appreciate it. I read all of it and love hearing from you guys, so keep all that coming. It's fun to always get into the college experience, and there's so much going on, and the college world of basketball and coaching, I feel, is ever changing, and there's all sorts of new wrinkles and dynamics and things growing with this game, and we're going to focus today on the JuCo aspect of it, the junior college aspect, and specifically about building a competitive junior college. I know that some of you listening are really eager and interested about the college ranks. Some of you are in the college ranks, maybe as an assistant or involved in some level, and really excited to get into jumping into full on coaching in that level. So that's kind of what we're going to get into today. And I also think for those who are at the high school level, this will be kind of interesting to kind of hear about for your players who have JuCo looks or JuCo offers, kind of what that might look like, and maybe also what goes into finding a good program that fits for them. So we're going to get all into that, the idea of building a competitive JuCo program. And of course, I'm very happy to be joined by a guest today. This guest, as he's about to mention, it's kind of in a fun situation because the name of the school that he's at changed. He is the head men's basketball coach at Fort Hays Tech Northwest. Coach Brad Shaw today is with us. Coach, again, appreciate you coming on here and joining us today. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. Fired up to talk about JuCo ball.
Awesome, Coach. Let's start. I kind of gave a little teaser there about the name change of the program you're at, but let's start with your journey, your basketball journey, your coaching journey. Talk us through where this game of basketball and your coaching journey's taken you, and how you ended up at Fort Hays Tech Northwest.
Absolutely. So I am originally from Fargo, North Dakota, and I ended up going to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So I am a Cornhusker. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was thinking about even joining a frat at Iowa, or maybe playing some small college ball nearby home. And I was fortunate enough to get the call the summer before school started about a spot opening up as a manager under the staff of Doc Sadler. So that was fantastic. And then just hit the ground running. I'll never forget the very first day of school, getting thrown in the fire at a workout. It was something I had never dreamed of and expected. It was crazy and such fast paced. And then every year was something new in Lincoln. And that was really awesome to experience and be around, including a coaching change. And I got to stick around on staff then when Tim Miles joined the program. And so it's really great to have worked under two big names and two great guys. And then from there, after graduation, I spent 1 year coaching at Miami University, Hamilton in Ohio. It's a sister school to Miami, Ohio. And then after that, I actually moved to Florida. I have family in Florida. I spent 3 years coaching at Johnson and Wales University, NAI school in North Miami. Unfortunately, they don't exist anymore because COVID shut them down, along with, I think, at least one other campus for Johnson and Wales, because they're kind of all over the map. And so that was unfortunate to see them close, but I did get out in the nick of time before that ended up happening. But it was a great experience there to learn how to win as the underdog. That was my first taste of that. And then from Johnson and Wales, I went back to North Dakota and then became an assistant under Josh Vaughn at Dickinson State University, also NAI. So I kept the NAI trend going. And then actually Coach Vaughn left. He's now at Northern State University in Aberdeen. And then that's where I was introduced to Coach Angen at North Dakota State College of Science, a Division I junior college, where I spent the last 4 years there as assistant coach. And it was just a tremendous experience being so close to home. NDSCS is located in Wapaton, North Dakota, and that's just 45 minutes from Fargo. And actually, my mother is from Wapaton, so it just felt like that was the place to be. It was tremendous, tremendous times, and boy, did we win a lot of games there. I believe the combined record was 105-16 in my 4
Wow.
years there. I mean, the
That's
standard
incredible.
was the standard was pretty high when I got in there. The
Yeah.
bar had been set by the previous teams, and it was just a real honor to be there and to learn so much from Coach Engen and to coach a lot of just tremendous guys and players. It was a blast. And then and this opportunity then opened up here at Fort Hays Tech Northwest, and I was ready for the next chapter, and I'm fired up to be here. I've been here since the very beginning of August, and I feel like the time is just flying by. And ready or not, here we go.
You're hearing your story and your journey with all the stops on the way got me thinking, Coach. And so I'm curious about like with all the different experiences that you've had and all the different stops that you've gone along the way, are there things about your coaching style or your like coaching mantra that have always carried over from stop to stop? I know that we gain everything with every stop that we're at, but are there things that like no matter what stop you've been at have kind of like stayed consistent with your coaching practices or coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I think to answer that question, the one thing that comes to mind is I really dive into the scouting report of whoever we're
Mm.
playing, wherever I've been at. I feel like I want to be the most prepared guy on the bench and just to be so helpful to the guys because they need that little boost of, hey, what's coming next? Prepare me for what action is about to be ran. So I take pride in that. It's been one of my passions wherever I've been to get that scout rocking. So that's the answer.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, love that, Coach. Now, as I mentioned in the onset, Coach, there's a lot of people listening who either are interested in getting involved in the college coaching game, or maybe are kind of have like a bit of a foot in the door. I know that there's some listeners I know who do graduate assistant or some video coordinating and things of that nature, and are involved in that in some respect. But in general, for those in my audience who are maybe interested about getting their foot in the door, so to speak, in the college coaching ranks, what advice would you give to a young or a new coach, somebody who's trying to jump into that side of coaching, as to maybe one of the better ways or how to kind of go about getting into it?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is it's cliche, but it's always who you know and not what you know. Those things always help. Being able to have somebody on your resume that by chance maybe your future or hopeful employer happens to know somebody and have some ties. Those are always a big deal. But working camps is a great way to network because you'll meet other people with the same aspirations or same kind of scenarios. They're coaching. They're always looking for the next best thing, and you'll meet some guys and all of a sudden they just explode in the coaching scene and they get some big time gigs, and it's like, wow, I met you at camp, look at you now. And so those things definitely help. I've also done some camps with breakthrough basketball, so you get to meet a lot of people with that as well. You'll get to bring in some local coaches to help out with camp. That's always a great thing to do. And then sometimes the best thing is having players, right? If you're looking for a job and you got players, that will get it for you. That'll get that job. That'll gauge that interest. And that's one thing I've always kind of had echo in my head. It's about the players. It's about the players. So that's a few tips.
Well, one of the things that's kind of cool about I think the basketball profession in general is that there's so many ways to get involved, and there's so many ways to kind of get yourself out there, like you said about different camps that are out there or different opportunities that are out there. I know that there's a lot of coaches who are willing to kind of take people on in different roles, volunteership, or kind of get them acclimated or kind of familiar with what it is that they're doing. I feel like the coaching community is a very open one in accepting of teaching and bringing in new people, but also there's so many opportunities out there for things like camps or things to be get yourself out there and be visible, that it's a really easy community, I think, to kind of jump right into and kind of, get involved, get network, and do all those sort of things and kind of hit the ground running from there.
Definitely, especially coaching JuCo ball,
Hmm.
and depending where you're out on the map, all the schools are different. Some schools have guys around in the summer, and some schools do not. And so for me, I'm not used to having the guys around in the summertime. We usually let the guys have their summers off. So for me, summertime, I'm in total camp mode. That's my thought process. All right, what's next? Where can I go? How can I help? Let's do it. Just keep it going
Yeah.
and run as many camps and help out as many as possible just because that's what summer's all about.
Yeah, no, that's great that you can kind of. I imagine for you, it's kind of something kind of interesting where you're still involved in coaching. Obviously, you're still involved working with guys, but it's a different sort of climate. It's a different sort of feeling to it when you're doing camps versus like your full-time program.
Oh yeah, it's a great mix, honestly, because then you get to appreciate the level of basketball that you're currently at because you'll be a little slower paced, right? If you're
Yeah,
with the kids and letting some travels go by, things like that. But no, it's fantastic to have that mix and appreciation. And then you realize those are your fans, or that's how, hey, I could get this kid to come to a future camp, and so you're trying to build that relationship and be a great role model and example for these kids to spread some joy with hoops.
oh, fantastic. Coach, as we kind of transition the idea of building a competitive JuCo program, let's kind of talk us through the process of kind of building a program that's competitive. What goes into the type of intangibles, I guess, so to speak, the type of culture pieces and those other sort of pieces that have to be put in place to kind of get the program mentally and culture wise where it needs to be.
Definitely. Working under Stu Engen really taught me a lot. Just his presence alone got the guy's attention. He's this big figure, somebody you're not trying to get on his bad side, right? Or he'll let you know about it. It just the standard was set so high that you got to understand that you need to pick up the slack or somebody else will. And so you have to earn your minutes on the floor, on the practice floor. You got to do all the right things off the floor in order to earn your opportunity. But just conditioning as well. That was a big piece for us. You got to be in shape and you have to earn trust. And then having that swagger, right? Just that feeling of, hey, we got the guys. It doesn't matter who's the big dog tonight, right? We're all in here to chip in and win because it's all about the big picture. So those were a couple of the big things that really helped us out. And then establishing that home presence,
Hmm.
having students in the crowd, that's such a game changer that you can have in your home atmosphere and building the most competitive advantage possible.
When you mentioned that about like, the atmosphere that you can create, what can a coach do to kind of like build that sort of atmosphere where, fans want to come out and they want to build that home field advantage and there's kind of that electricity and buzz in the air. What is the sort of things a coach can do to kind of bring that sort of excitement and bring that to kind of the attention of the student population?
Yeah, coming from small towns, the first thing to attract an audience is there you got to have some sort of local figure. That part will help bring in just a handful of people because it's a small town or whatnot to have some local familiarity. So that part always helps. Or have some sort of promotion, right? What's the reason that you're coming in? Maybe the kids that were working camp get to wear their camp shirt and come to the game for free. Something like that to help sweeten the pot, to help sweeten the deal, to get more fans to come in. But ultimately, the college students can totally pack a home environment. So finding a way to get students to come to the games, having some motive, right? Maybe there's free pizza for the students or something like that to get them out of their dorm room, take a break from homework, and get them to get on their feet and shout a little bit.
No, I love that. No, that's really cool. Uh, so one of the interesting things, Coach, is you kind of get the opportunity, obviously in the recruiting sense, to make sure that you're bringing in guys that fit the culture that you want, that are going to be responsive to the culture that you want. And I know that you're kind of just jumping in right now, currently at Fort Hays Tech Northwest, but I'm curious in the recruiting sense because you've been around in the college game for a while. How do you identify guys who you think are going to be good culture fits? What stands out with a guy that says, you know what, this is somebody who I know fits in with what it is that we're trying to do in our program?
Yeah, there's a couple things that come to mind. I've always been taught you want winners, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want somebody coming in that's, hey, I average 20, 25 points a game, because that's just kind of me thing. I want who does the little things to help your team win, and then who's also been in the big moments, the big games, the big stage, big atmospheres, because that's what you're going to be going up against. You can't be in a small crowd and all of a sudden a huge hostile crowd that will totally flip you out a little bit. So there's that would really be great. And then the other one is academics. You got to have somebody that you can trust in the classroom. So I always ask the coaches when I'm recruiting players, how's he doing in the classroom? Talk to me about him, any conduct, things like that. You got to have guys that are always representing men's basketball, always representing your team on and off the floor. So I use the phrase for our players all the time. You need to be a good dude on and off the floor. So that's kind of my motto is if you can just be a good dude, that's key. That will help us in the long run.
And that's really cool that you kind of bring up that part because I think when we think about the recruiting aspect, obviously stats play their role that they do. There's got to be some basketball skill involved, but to hear that there are coaches who aren't necessarily just going to focus on a person's stat line, but they're looking at the player in their totality in terms of like how much are they a team person, how much do they value winning and success. I think hopefully that might get some players potentially thinking, or coaches who are listening thinking that, hey, your guy or girl that you have on your team can be a huge asset to potentially a JuCo program, even if they're not jumping off the page stats wise, that there's these other intangibles that could be just as vital and important that a coach is looking for.
Absolutely. You said it.
So talk about the speed of JuCo for those who might not know. To build a competitive JuCo program, obviously there's going to have to be players coming in who got to adjust and get ready for the pace of play and the level of skill that's there at the JuCo level. So when you're bringing guys in, what are things that you do when working with guys to say like, hey, this is the way that you got to work. This is the way that we practice. Here's where your skill set needs to be in order for you to be competitive out there.
Definitely. And especially this upcoming season, we're in the Jayhawk conference where we need to go up against the defending national champs. And then there were also two other schools in our conference who made nationals last year. So if that's not enough to get you on the edge of your seat, I don't know what is. So you got to be a competitor and you have to be realistic that these teams are going to be big and fast. You have to have that mindset and prepare to get sped up. Prepare for all these teams to come in and try to press you. That's one thing I've noticed. You got to be ready to handle the heat. And as a team, we have to correct all of our bad habits, right? We can't make the same mistakes. One that always comes to mind is the jump pass, right? We have to be smart about the jump pass. If you ever listen to Charles Barkley, I just love what he says that the jump pass is not a thing. I always have thought the same thing. It just doesn't look good. It looks like chaos out there sometimes when you're throwing a jump pass. But the other thing to realize too is you're going up against guys that are also out there to prove themselves. These are guys that are hungry. They're looking to get offers just like you are. So the key is put our guys in the right spots. And one thing I did do is watch the film. We have a couple returners and at least watch the film and watch what worked for them because I want them to be doing the same things that worked for them a season ago. And so do what works and play to our strengths and we'll be right there.
So when you mention about the guys being able to handle pressure and being able to handle that, probably that huge leap, right? In the way that pressure may look at a high school level versus a JuCo level. What are some things
Mhm.
that you're kind of working on in terms of maybe practices or skill training or development? What are some things that drill wise kind of help get those guys ready for the pace of play and for things such as being able to handle pressure?
Yeah, one of the favorite drills of mine that Coach Engen implemented was 8-man press. So it's like you're playing a game of football almost. You got to go from one end zone to the other end zone, and you have to get by 8 defenders. They all are in a little quarter of the court. So you have the first quarter, then the second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. So you're just breaking the court into fourths. And so once you cross the first two, then you have to get by the next two. And so the 2 defenders have total free reign to do whatever they want to do. They can go trap you or just cause havoc is their job. And it starts with pressuring just the simple inbounds pass, right? You have to get open pretty much 1-on-2 to start the drill. And then eventually you try to work your way all the way down to the other end of the court. We'll implement different rules. Sometimes we'll just say you only get a 1 dribble, some days 2 dribbles. We're really looking to make the most of your dribble and then find your teammate, work together, right? Come back to the ball without a backcourt violation, but stay even or behind with your partner, give and go, get that ball flowing, get it popping, and then you have to catch the ball in the end zone to score the touchdown. And so everybody has a partner and we just rotate through. So the subs will come into the back line and then work their way up from the front row to be in the team on offense. And then um, we'll go either 2 or 3 times for all the groups, and then the groups for every unsuccessful turn, you have a down and back. So you'll run if you don't score, and if you do score, then you get to rest a little bit. So it's a fun one that I love, and I know the guys like it too.
I imagine with that, as I'm picturing that in my head, that there's probably a lot of chaos and a lot of mistakes that happen that, but there's probably a lot of leaps in building knowledge and building game like knowledge because they're at such a disadvantage and they're having all this stuff kind of thrown at them that I imagine it is one of those things that it probably looks pretty crazy and hectic, but then you can kind of see them sort of put the pieces together and things start to click as they go through it.
Totally. You have to be poised. It sets you up for the big picture because you know the press is coming and you have to expect it and embrace it. And these are great ways to practice and gear up for it.
So, kind of building onto that, let's kind of talk about any other skill sets that you think. I think for players who may not be, aware of this when they're in high school or whatever, they may not be aware of just where their, even their offensive skill set needs to be, whether their ability, their basketball IQ, or the vision, passing, shooting. Are there things as you bring guys in that you're like, okay, we got to work on this right away because this might have offensively been acceptable enough in high school to get you where you need to, but you're not going to make it here in this to be a good in our good JuCo program. What are some things that you kind of have to build up on your players on the offensive skill set wise?
Definitely. So we have a couple guys that maybe they're a little bit taller, but think that they're guards and their shooting and ball handling isn't quite where it needs to be. So we have to reinforce them to say, hey, we're looking at you to make a few plays at the rack. That's one of our big emphasis is play to your strengths. You're taller, you have some length, right? We don't need you to be the guy to bring the ball up. So understanding their role, and then also we'll have some guards that are just terrific shooters. But now it's like, okay, hey, what else can you do? We got to get you to be able to defend and contain the ball and to be able to handle some pressure and handle the ball. So when you do have to put it on the deck, you have a good feel for it. So really just expanding their game and understanding the makeup of our team, understanding we are not the tallest team out there. So we have to be one of the smartest teams and hardest working teams. That's how we will get the job done.
Hmm. No, 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 really cool, Coach. Appreciate you sharing that. Let's talk now about team wise. So defense or offensively, what is it that you conceptually like to be running on a defense and offense that have allowed your teams to be successful? What have you kind of switched it up throughout the years? Are there things that you're kind of remain steadfast to? What have you found has worked for you to have some success at your level?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep the same approach that we've had at NDSDS now, bringing that to Fort Hays Tech Northwest. And the first one is that we want to run. We want to run. We want to be scoring up in the 90s, ideally holding teams in the 60s. That's going to be a harder task this upcoming year here in the Jayhawk, but also to keep ourselves in games, got to stay with the single digit turnovers. Can't let that number escalate. Offensive rebounds, I've always been taught by Coach Engen, you want to get 40% of your misses back. And I even did the math. And last year, the Mavericks that they were called, now we're the Tigers, got 33% of their misses back. So there's totally room for improvement. You want to get those second chances, third chances, try to find a way to get an easy deuce. But also you got to snag um, 10 to 15 points off the scout. You got to be the hardest working team. Those are things I definitely will continue to preach. You have to shoot more free throws than the other team. That's a way to win a ball game, right? Stay out of foul trouble. Don't let a team get in the bonus so quick. And then also, and it's going to be different game to game, but over the course of the season, you want to have more made threes than your opponents when you look at the accumulative stats. But then for offense and defense, we can mix it up. We can
Okay.
definitely mix it up. I love defensively being able to press a little bit, to slow some clock down, and then run some hard nosed man. But we can also mix it up with our zone, which is a very unique zone that I'm planning to bring on here from my previous school, just because it's not your typical or traditional zone without giving too many details away. But the biggest emphasis is containing the ball, right? If you can't keep the ball in front of you, it's house on fire. You got to contain that penetration and be able to pass off a man and then pick up a man very quick and not allowing such easy catches. And then one great drill we do to prepare that is a 8-on-5 shell. So we'll
Okay.
have, as long as the guys get to the right spots, then we can make the next pass. So gradually, as the season goes, that ball will hopefully become more of a hot potato. But I always tell the players, don't pass the ball if we're not in the right spots yet. So that drill, we definitely need to pick up some speed on. But offensively, my approach is you have to take the best shot for the team. Take the shot that the team wants, right? It's got to be a good look, and I don't mind if it's a quick one. Then knock it down. If it's a shot, other guys would say yes, yes. Then that's the one we got to take. We use a measuring stick as well. We do shooting league and then championship shooting, where if you're not getting good scores in that, we don't expect you to be somebody taking 10 shots a night. You haven't earned that. You haven't knocked enough shots down in practice or on your own to earn all those shots in the game. But
Yeah.
the other offense will definitely continue to run that we did at my previous school is our Wildcat, where
Okay.
it's the ability to hand off and make reads and holding screens and cutting hard and really setting up a teammate via the cut, via the screen, the ability to go side to side, making reads, knowing if the team is switching or not. You have options. But what the guys like the most is it's an offense that gives you the ability to just go and make a play, right? Just go and make a play. And then we'll always find the mismatch too. It doesn't have to be the point guard that brings the ball up when we run it either. So if we like our matchup and we think the defense has a slower guy, then we'll say, all right, you're guarding the ball. We're going to make that guy guard the ball. So we will put our guys in the right spots to get it flowing.
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask because if your goal is to get, run up the score out there to the 90s at least, that can't just come from necessarily a rigid kind of structured system. It seems that there has to be a lot of, either you're putting a lot of pressure on guys getting turnovers, or like you mentioned about getting a lot of offensive rebounds, or as you mentioned, kind of letting your guys have the ability to make plays. And I think that, something that kind of caught my attention about, what it was that you were talking about is the level of, trust that's involved. And I feel as if once you kind of get a feel for your guys and their skill set and what they're capable of, and you start to get that little repertoire kind of going and that relationship going, um, you're able to kind of know like, hey, if we put these guys in these situations, we can trust them that they're going to be able to make a good read and make a play off of that. And that seems to be something that you like to be, kind of coaching your guys or kind of giving that your guys that level of confidence in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll be going up against our fair share of zone as well. And the best way to beat that zone is beat the team down the floor. So we got to be in shape. We got to be able to run, and we got to be just menaces out there, and just move so well without the ball, and be hard to guard. And these are all things that we can do. We just have to keep preaching it and go execute.
You talked about the limiting of turnovers. So is that
Yeah.
something that, like you said, when you're kind of working on drills that break pressure, is that really one of the best ways to kind of limit turnovers? Are there other things that you kind of work on to make sure that, passes are crisp, ball security is where it needs to be, and that there's not those kind of silly, breakaway turnovers that lead to layups or dunks on the other end?
For sure, for sure. Even doing a drill as simple as weave, right? I'm a big believer in weave for the passing, the catching, and the conditioning. And I'll get on the guys if you're bobbling, or if you're not running hard, or if you're throwing, I call them lollipop passes, where you just little soft lobs. Those ones drive me crazy. But no, we definitely do that. And then when we go live, we'll have times where we call it turnover games, where if you turn the ball over, you're subbed out, and then you have to go to the end of the line or end of the bench, and you're going to have to wait a while before you come back in, because there's some guys ahead of you on the
Uh,
bench and it's their turn next. So that's one way to reinforce the positive behavior, is understanding you're going to be out a while if you do turn it over. And then sometimes we'll go live, and we'll do these 7 point games or two turnovers, whatever happens first. So if a team turns the ball over twice, that's the game. They're out, new team comes in. So there's a lot of things we do. I mean, if you want to be on, if you want to be out there, you got to take care of the rock.
yeah. So earning even in practice, your practice plan sounds like there's a lot of competition involved. Is that something that's always been a big component of your practices, or your practices? Would you describe them as being like highly competitive environments?
Yeah, that's what these guys want to do, right?
Is it?
You
Yeah.
think about it at the JuCo level, these guys really want to play, and that's actually something that my assistant coach Johnson and I were talking about today. We have to keep doing drills and practice where we keep building it up, building it up, building it up. We can't go from something high intense to something low intense, because we don't want our players to drop. They'll drop a little bit with their enthusiasm and energy if it's a simple shell drill, right? Sometimes that's not the hope, right? You don't want that, but you have to understand your crowd, you understand your team and your audience, knowing these guys want to just play, 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 and get after it. And then it's like, all right, how can we do that? So actually today we did out of bounds games. So we had to run an out of bounds play, and I told them you got either one pass to shoot it, or the next time you have 5 seconds from when you inbounded. So those kinds of things, the
Mhm.
guys really, really love that, love the fire.
Well, that's something that I'm glad that you brought up here a couple of times, and I think that for one of the real interesting aspects, JUCO specific, and I'll let you speak more about it, is that these guys, I imagine many of them, if not all of them, have aspirations of playing basketball beyond JUCO, and so their motivation level is very high to be out there on the court. And so knowing that, that seems like that's something that you're always like intentionally leveraging. You're intentionally leveraging their competitiveness, their desire to be out there on the court, because you kind of know, well, you definitely know where it is that they're trying to head after they're done with your program. It sounds like that's something you can really kind of use to your advantage as a coach.
Definitely. We actually had one-on-one meetings earlier this week, and a lot of guys stressed in their goals. They're looking to play at the next level. And this is what you're here for, right? We're trying to prepare our guys for the future and send them off to bigger and better things. And by doing what we ask them to do and getting in shape and being ready to transition to the next drill and to just keep things moving will all benefit them in the long haul.
So that does lead then to kind of I guess, a natural follow-up question with that, coach, when it comes to building a program that plays for each other, that has good teamwork and team chemistry. How have you balanced creating a team where you have a bunch of guys who have the desire to play after JuCo, but also make it so that they are a team that works together, that helps each other out, and is more selfless than selfish? How do you kind of balance that and make sure that you're bringing these guys together to play as a team?
Definitely. One thing I've always done is when I rewatch the game, I'm always watching the bench energy.
Mm.
That's one thing too. I'm always pointing that out. If everybody's on their feet and you have that one guy that's not, that person will have a harsh conversation with the coaches. Sometimes it'll be brought up in front of the whole team. Sometimes we'll leave that person back for the next road trip. There's just little things that if you can't have the pity party, right? You got to be there for your brothers. You got to be there for the team and be ready when your number is called. And if you don't like your role on the team, then you need to do something about that. You have to go say, all right, I'm here to kick some butt. Let's go do this. I want to be out there. What do I need to do? And go earn it. And then um, what helps too is the winning piece and to be able to empty the bench. Oh, the guys love that stuff,
Do
right?
they?
Right.
Yeah.
They really do. They go nuts when the guys who don't get a whole lot of playing time and then they get an opportunity. I mean, that's one way to really bond as a group, but you need to be up comfortably in order to do those things. And that's part of the culture and the standard and winning ball games. And all things to think about for the big picture. Because when you win, everybody eats and everybody's trying to move on to the next best thing.
Yeah, yeah, that bench energy, I mean, that's so important because, man, it makes such a difference, right? I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir talking to you about this, but man, when you have a bench that's full of energy and full of life, and they're playing for each other, it just feels like there's so much you can do as a team when you know that, like, every person is engaged. And to make that a point of emphasis, like you said, I think is super important. And your guys know, I imagine that, like, they're always kind of being watched. It's always going to kind of be there on film, like how it is that they're acting, what their body language is giving away. And even those things, I'm sure you could talk about the way that they act as teammates, and the way that they bring that energy if they're on the bench, or the way that they kind of support and act towards each other, might be something that does get them noticed or help them stand out from somebody else when they're looking to go play at the next level.
Oh, absolutely. I'll never forget when I was back in Florida, I went to a showcase and where all the coaches are sitting around the outside. There's a few courts going on, and there's just this one player who just went around and introduced himself and shook his hand with every single coach in there. I'm like, holy smokes, this is a kid I want on my team. And so just those little things, it had nothing to do with his play, right? But that's some way you can win a coaching staff and win teammates over is just be genuine and be a decent person.
Yeah, for definitely. No, I couldn't agree more with that. Um, One of the things I was kind of curious about, Coach, was also about how, in building a competitive JUCO program, how do you kind of guide your players to manage success that they're going to have on the court, while also helping them navigate off the court college life? Because obviously this is a big transition in their life, going to the college environment. How do you kind of serve as somebody who's there to help manage and be a guide for them and coach them successfully on the court, while also building them up and making sure that they're being successful for the off the court college experience that they're in?
Yeah, definitely. The first thing that comes to mind is the graduation piece, right? That's the big picture. That is a huge thing for these guys, right? to be able to have that degree. And then at the 4-year level, if you want to go D1, D2, this is stuff that you need to knock out, guys. That's
Mhm.
why you're here. So so that's a big piece. And actually, Fort Hays Tech Northwest is very, very strong at the graduation rate, which is
Nice.
fantastic. But for the other guys, it's understanding why you're here, right? You're here. We always say for JuCo, you're here to boost your grades or boost your stock, or sometimes it's both. And so understand why you're here, and that you need to be able to manage your time. That's what college is all about, right? What are you guys doing when the coaching staff is not watching? I mean, we can only do the study tables for so long, right? And so you
Yeah.
have to be able to make good decisions on your own, and then to be able to drag your roommates out with you when you're going to the gym or get into class or practice on time. We'll do class checks as well, making sure everyone's there, and really encourage, though, growing and gaining more friends on campus,
Really,
because
really. That's
that's a
interesting.
big one. I'm not a fan. If you're just somebody and your only friends are the guys on the team, then you're not getting out much. You're not doing enough. Honestly, that's my approach. That's my take. Especially at a small campus like ours, it's really important to get to know more of the people that you're in class with, or and because you never know. Hey, maybe you can work on some homework together. It can go a long way. And then you're bringing in fans. We need more fans to come to the game. So that's the big one.
Yeah,
But like I
networking a little
said,
bit.
oh, exactly. And like I said, it's to prepare them for the future, right? It's only going to be a more stricter environment, a more time managed environment if you do go to the 4-year level. You're going to even have less free time once you leave here. But then the other part, like I said earlier, is being a good dude. And
Mhm.
we always have two rules that I learned from my former coach, especially early on, right? A lot of guys, it's their first time being away from home, and there's no one there to tell them what to do. But we always have these two rules: is fast start academically and no conduct. So those are the two big ones. If you're doing those two things right, the basketball part will get better as we go. But you can't have um, any hiccups to start, and to make sure that you're playing keep up and not catch up in the classroom.
Yeah, I think that for your college players and any college players in particular, even the speed of academics, right? You talk about the speed of basketball and what that transition is like. I think the speed of college academics and being in a college classroom is one that could throw kids for a loop. And like you said, when if they start off strong academically, probably a lot easier to maintain it. But I imagine, at least for some of your guys, just the way that the classes are taught, or just the experience of when classes are and not having the same structure as a high school might be a huge adjustment, just like things on the court.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have guys, and you'll have it every year at JUCO, that they need to come here and boost those grades to get eligible,
Hmm.
right?
For
That's a
eligibility, yeah,
huge,
yeah.
yeah, that's a huge piece. You have to knock those things out, and understand that the school part is number one. That is top priority. That is how you are going to help yourself. So school, 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 got to get it done.
Yeah, student athlete, right? That's what I try to tell my girls. Big
Yep.
emphasis on the word that comes in front, student, for sure.
Oh,
You
totally.
mentioned, Coach, something that and this is what I was thinking about as you were talking about your passion for scouting, and that's something that you've taken from each step. And I was curious, when
Mhm.
it comes to being a successful, collegiate coach, JUCO coach, what is the level of attention to detail, the level of scouting that you feel is kind of necessary to be putting your program in the best position to be successful?
Yeah. So even on our own, I said this line to our guys the other day. We had a little team scrimmage, right? Nothing too crazy. And um, I said, guys, you got to learn the self scout before we can learn an opposing team scout. I mean, we're giving up threes to guys we know that are shooters and whatnot, and so just against our own selves, right? And so those are things that you got to be better at. And then in terms of our scout, right, we have to lock in to a couple keys. That was one thing I've learned as well. I can't overload these guys. Same thing for our own playbook. We can't have such a huge playbook. We got to focus on some small things and master those before we expand and expand and expand, especially come scrimmage time, right? We got to have a couple key go-tos, and then we just continue to build. But then, yeah, the scout part, it's another great phrase. It's the transfer of knowledge, right? It doesn't matter if I know all the answers. You guys got to be able to let this sink in as well when we go over it in practice, and then comes the game time. Are you going to remember all that stuff, right? So, no, but it's a blast. It's a grind, and that's what film is for as well, to make sure you have a nice scouting report and get all the guys in film, because it's easy to just say, all right, guys, we're going to watch ourselves, but do they really pay attention when or you're watching somebody else?
You said, coach, and something that I thought was interesting, that you kind of start, start small, kind of like chunk it. You don't try to like give everything right away and overwhelm them. So are there specific ways that you kind of decide like what to give your guys or what to kind of teach your guys and then build up from there? How do you kind of prioritize like where to kind of start from and kind of building their ability to understand, scouting and game plans? How does that process kind of build up from the ground up?
Yeah, we'll start with some very base plays, very generic plays, plays
Hmm.
that I'm sure they've ran before, some variation in their basketball time, and then we just build on from there. And then um, having play calls perhaps that can give the cue away, right, for what we're trying to do, and vice versa for the scout, right? I'll give a very specific name to the play, or I'll try to find out the name of the play call that we're going up against, so that we already know it. And sometimes one of my old bosses in Florida said, well, here's what I want to do. I want to learn about five of their plays, and then I want to run one of the plays at them. So during the game, right, beat the other team on their own play. That was something he loved to do. So um, having that mindset is big time.
No, not no, that's great. I'm writing this down for myself as well.
Yeah,
Couple other things, Coach. I was just kind of curious about things that you brought up. Talked about, on in terms of being successful on the court. One of the things I thought was really interesting was, you said about getting those second, third chances, getting 40% of an opportunity to get, the ball back and get another basket up or get another shot up kind of on the offensive end. Is that something that is just effort based and emphasizing with your guys? Is that something that could be like taught? Are there things that you can kind of like drill to kind of really emphasize the importance of that? I was curious about how you can kind of build your program up to kind of hit that like 40% target that you mentioned earlier.
the rebounding is all want to. You gotta want
Hmm.
to, and in order to make a play, you have to be at the play. And so just knowing what your strengths are and crash as hard as you can. We got a couple guys that are really good at that. And then knowing what's best for the team, right? We can't have five guys crashing, but we need guys to go. We got to have an opportunity to go steal a couple baskets, and yeah, so we'll do some drills in practice that sometimes make it even easier for the offense, right? To get an offensive rebound, just to believe that they can go get them. And so maybe for the defense, they have to wait for the ball to bounce before they can get it. So then obviously the offense has the advantage. Or we'll do drills where we're just playing half court and we're going to blow the whistle dead no matter what. So it's like, guys, you have no choice but to crash because we're not going back. So it's time to start
Hmm.
practicing that. You got to go. And actually, what's great about film as
Yeah.
well is you get to point out those guys on film who aren't doing either. You're not getting back and you're not crashing, so you're not doing either. So those will be great as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you brought that up about putting like structures or specific things in place to allow your guys to see success. I think, that may seem like, oh, that's something that, only needs to happen at the younger levels. They got to see success, or you got to put these kind of parameters in place for that. But it's so fascinating to hear you kind of mention that even at that level, like a JuCo level for something like that, when like players got to see like, some success and putting an environment in where they can see like, them actually being able to accomplish that task or that skill could be something that kind of gets the light bulb flicked on, or kind of it's like, oh, okay, I can do this, and I know I can do this in a game because I saw some success in it in a practice situation.
Yeah, and then what's different from this team to compared to the last couple years is we don't have a 7-footer this year on our squad, right? So we can't just rely on one guy. Our rebounding on both ends is a total team effort, and then especially for we have a freshman big who we do believe in is going to be a key piece here down the road, and that's the beauty of JUCO ball is that guys all evolve at different times. You just don't know when exactly that's going to be. But we got one guy who is just electric when he crashes and gets tip-ins and he's flying in there, but he doesn't go all the time. And so that's the key. It's like this is a great part of your game that you need to continue to do and do more.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear you mention that part, Coach. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
A couple more questions, Coach, for it. Our concluding segment that I was thinking of throughout our conversation, and that is, it's a different sort of grind, I think, in the at the JUCO level in terms of the season and the way that, the travel and everything that's involved in that versus maybe what the guys have experienced before. Depending on what their experience is, whether they're coming straight from high school or transferring elsewhere, it's going to be a little bit different. But when it comes to kind of keeping your program kind of focused on task day in and day out, week in and week out, excuse me, over a long season, what do you think as a coach is the keys to kind of like managing, the long grind of a season and keeping your guys rested, keeping them mentally sharp and ready to go game in and game out?
Yeah, you have to have some other wrinkles in the schedule on a day off, or do something as a team together, uh, or go hop in the pool or something to take care of our body, something relaxing, something enjoyable to keep everybody's spirits up and whatnot, and understand that hey, we can all hang out off the floor as well, and those things go a long way, and that's how we build chemistry, and plan to do a couple of those activities here coming up before game number one of the regular season. But and that's another reason, or another thing is, so for example, we're pretty much playing during Thanksgiving this year. So we play 2 days before and 2 days after. So that's just too much of a mess to say, yeah, guys, go ahead and fly home. We're not doing that. We can't, we need to be here because it's game to game pretty much. And we'll make sure to do something for Thanksgiving here. But what I'm being nice about to the guys is I am giving them a little bit of a fall break here right after our scrimmages. I'm going to give them some time to decompress and go see some family if they want to. And then when we come back, we got 1 full week before the first game of the year. So it's like a good little last hurrah before we are fully on.
And what are you able to, as like the season goes on with that, do you just sort of eyeball it when you know that your guys are going to kind of need like a break or a rest, or is it something that you can kind of almost, slightly pencil in because you kind of know when that's going to be? How do you kind of assess kind of like where your team is at and the vibe of your team and what they kind of need at that
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah, always monitoring the injury status as well of guys. We've had to cancel one workout earlier because we had too many guys that were out and it just wasn't worth it. But also, you do want to keep the guys on their toes, and so you have to prepare guys for playing back to back. So even the next day after a grueling battle, you got to get on your feet and sweat it out, and because that's the big picture. You got to be able to do that again the next day. And that's why you also keep the guys on their toes with that, because most of the time everyone's going to assume the day after a game you have a day off, right? You never want to assume that, and then all of a sudden guys make bad choices and don't go to sleep and things like that. So that's a big one as well, just to mix up when you have your scheduled days off. So that's one way as well to keep the guys fresh and keep them thinking.
And to add to that, coach, let me ask about you as a coach and for yourself. It's a long season, a long grind for you. How do you kind of make sure that you're, staying on top of everything and you're staying sharp? I know how stressful it can get out there at the college level, and you want to make sure that you're the best version of yourself for your guys. So as a coach, how do you kind of make sure that you stay level, stay fresh, and you're able to be the best coach that you can be for your players?
Oh, for sure. I love to get in the weight room as well myself.
There you go, get a
I
little
always
workout
like
in,
to.
yeah.
I call it unleashing some fury. So that's sometimes you just you sometimes get fed up with some things going on or whatever it is, and it's just let's take it out on some weights. That's my approach. And um, but then also during the winter break, that's what's nice about JuCo is that it's not the Big Ten, right? Where maybe you get a couple of days for the winter break. In JUCO, we're off for maybe 2-ish weeks. And so that part's gonna be really nice. And I'll make sure to go to Florida, somewhere warm. That's a good way to step away and also do a little recruiting at the same time, but enjoy some nice weather and just to get away a little bit.
I like that. I like that of hit the weight room yourself here. Get a little of that energy out and kind of pump some
Yeah,
iron as well.
yeah.
That's good.
The guys
Gotta stay
need to
healthy. I
know
know
I'm yeah,
for
the
for some of
guys
us
need
as
to
coaches,
know
that's one of the
I'm
hardest
not
things to kind of take care of our physical health, getting enough sleep and everything. So it's good to know that's something that you're making a priority because sometimes we as coaches aren't necessarily the best at that, right?
oh yeah, for sure. And that's something that my assistant and I are doing a great job of is saying, guys, you can't even lift as much as us, so you need to get your weight up.
Yeah, get
So,
your weight up. No, that's awesome. Last question, Coach, before we hit our concluding segment. I'm glad you brought this up. Talk about the importance of your assistants and how at the JUCO level, at the college level, how vital it is to put your assistants in positions to be successful and what role assistants have played in your team's success.
yeah, the best part about the JUCO coaching staff is that you're doing it all. You have the power to do it all. You're monitoring everything. Everything that needs to get done, you're doing it in all the aspects. And so that's what's great about JUCO is it's just totally hands on deck. Um, but also me coming from another JUCO where I was the assistant there for 4 years. This is stuff that I had to do, and I was filing all the things that I was working on and things that I was going to make sure to bring to my next stop, and it really helps to have another assistant here that the guys love and that the guys can work their tails off with and spend that extra time in the weight room and in the gym with and just to have somebody who's been there done that and knows the college game and knows what to expect um but yeah this and the trustworthy piece and having that assistant coach show up every day because the last thing you want is to have a flaky coach, right, where they're not always there. You can't have a staff if somebody's not there, right? And so the and I say to the guys, the hardest part of a workout is showing up to the workout. So even as an assistant, you got to be there every day. Got to be a grinder,
Yeah.
uh, and that's key. And basketball is fun, and the season flies by.
Oh yeah.
Once we get to the games, it's like, whoa, we're
Where'd
already
the
at the end
season
of
go, right?
February. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, it's the hard part is the early season, and then staying on top of the guys' grades. That's a big one as well. That because it seems at the JUCO level, there's always a surprise come winter break, and so you have to plan ahead for that and get the guys in an intercession class perhaps if they need that or make sure that they drop the class in enough time but making sure that they added something else in the meantime, so all things to keep an eye on.
No, I love it. Great answer, Coach. To wrap up, Coach, and man, that's crazy already. An hour, excuse me, has already flown by, but it's been awesome so far. So, just a couple
Yeah.
questions that I ask every guest to wrap up. First off, Coach, Thinking back on your coaching career, I know there's been a lot of stops, a lot of things along the way on your coaching career, but what is a specific moment from your coaching career that you think by sharing our listeners would be able to learn from?
Yeah, I thought about this one here, and um, it's actually not a great memory, but it's such a
Okay.
great learning moment. And we were a couple plays away a couple years ago from making it to Hutchinson for the national tournament. And just the importance of knocking down a 1-and-1 free throw, right? Can send your team to nationals, can send your team to the state tournament, whatever it may be. But also on the flip side, securing that free throw rebound can also take you there. We lost in dramatic fashion on a simple free throw block out. We come down with the board and we're moving on. Or before that, we hit the 1-and-1, we're moving on. And so the free throw rebound is it's underappreciated, it's undervalued, and to also learn the rule of the free throw shot is if you're it's not the NBA. If you're on the perimeter, you have to wait until the ball hits before you can crash and go in there. And so unfortunately, we and I don't like to berate the officials, but they all three missed the call, which would have, if they called violation, would have punched our ticket to nationals. But you know what? You can only live and learn from moments like that. But just that's one that I'll never forget. It'll sting me forever, but it can be such a great moment to learn from, to practice your free throw rebounding, whether it is offense or defense, and just the ability to hit a clutch free throw to ice the
Yeah.
game.
All of those moments, coach, like you mentioned, right? Those things that, you know, if it matters to us, like you said about like the free throw procedures, rebound and secure and rebound is if it's something that's important and something that, you know, guys are going to be seeing a lot of in a game, which they obviously do. Put them in situations to practice those sort of things, like you said. Put them in a situation where they're learning from it and practicing it, because you would hate for it to come down to, some of these situations like what it is that you said, and also feel like, oh man, we didn't prepare for this or didn't practice it. And I think it's kind of a good reminder, all those things, those little attention to detail things important to spend a little time on in practice so they're ready come game time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Everybody probably thinks, oh, we got to have that play for the last 5 seconds. Well, you can't have the play if you don't have possession. So,
Yeah.
so that's key.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Coach, to wrap up, I give every guest kind of what I call a 60-second soapbox. You can go over 60 seconds, though. I'm not going to time you. It's just a catchy, gimmicky name I like to put to it. But I like to use it as kind of a platform for you to kind of get out like a final thought, a final message, a closing idea, something that you want to leave the listeners with. You can take it any direction you wish, basketball-wise or coaching-wise. It is your soapbox after all. So, Coach, I'm going to go ahead and kind of give you the floor here and let you take it from here.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, just some final things to wrap up with is that we have exciting times ahead here at Fort Hays Tech Northwest. Exciting new school name and new apparel and new colors, everything. It's been terrific. It's really exciting to be the first class of this. And athletics actually at the college have only been around since 2010, but this is the first year now of Fort Hays Tech Northwest in the top conference. The Jayhawk conference is an absolute gauntlet, and we can't wait to embrace the challenge on a nightly basis. And we have a terrific facility here at home, the Max Jones Fieldhouse. It is a beautiful, huge arena. It's one of the top in the league, and this league is Hutchinson, where the national tournament is held. But we're right up there. It's beautiful, and I love it. And we're a program that's on the rise, and we're here to make some noise. Those are the facts, and we're here to stay. We're here to climb the standings. And just wanted to reiterate that JuCo ball is so exciting. It's so fun to be a part of. There's so many excellent teams out there, regardless if you're D1, D2, D3. There are some really talented teams, talented players, and some really bright, intelligent coaches. And with JUCO as well, I love it because it truly is all about the second chances. The guys are here to better themselves, and maybe it didn't work out somewhere else, and here they can ride the ship. They can totally right the ship. I use this phrase all the time in JuCo that the guys will either remain the same or they will figure it out. They gotta figure out their purpose and turn that corner if they want to take the next step in their basketball career. But otherwise, I really appreciate you having me on. It's fun to share my story and philosophies and what to expect here this upcoming year.
Awesome. Coach, again, really appreciate you coming on here, sharing about your experience, talking about building competitive JuCo program, talk about what goes into JuCo ball, what players need to be doing on and off the court, play style, getting them, situated where they need to be grades wise and all the other good stuff that you mentioned. So like you mentioned, really excited for you to kind of get on this really cool journey here, Fort Hays Tech Northwest, and kind of hit the ground running, building the program up. So appreciate it again, Coach Stahl. Go get him this year. All right.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate you having me, and go Tigers.
Thank you guys. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.